led to the plane crash in Kerala? Now, this question has been asked, debated, and discussed by many since the ill-fated accident or the crash at the Kerala airport on Friday night. 18 people lost their lives, including two pilots. But the question that still remains unanswered is what were the exact reasons behind the cause? Many are citing the bad weather. We all know Kerala was bashed by rains that day, and there was flooding at multiple places, and it was incessant rainfall for almost 24 hours before the flight had landed there. Some are blaming the tabletop nature of the airport. Now, what are tabletop airports, and how how do these play a role in the flight landings, and how is it different than landings at other airports? These questions and these points have been a topic of discussion for many. And moreover, these points have become a topic of discussion because more than a normal landing or in any unfaithful event like this, it hurt people more, and people have been emotional about the incident because this was a Vande Bharat flight. The passengers were looking to come back to their home country from Dubai after the effects of the coronavirus pandemic abroad. They were just about to land on the motherland, and this ill-fated accident took place. What are the reasons behind it is the question that is being asked since the past over 36 hours since the flight crashed. Now, if we talk about the ministry and the official information that is coming out, Hardeep Singh Puri said that the flight skidded off and broke into two parts, and a portion of it skidded almost 35 feet below the airport, and that is why the casualties have been so many. According to initial reports, the pilot, who is unfortunately no more with us, he switched off the engine before landing, and that prevented from the aircraft, uh, getting into an explosion, which could have led to a lot more casualties. But as I said, these are all preliminary informations. So let's try to understand the technicalities behind what might have led to the Kerala plane crash. And to answer these questions and the possible and probable technicalities behind landing at such airports and the weather that day and the crash itself, we have Group Captain Somala Srinivas, retired, joining us. Thank you, sir, for joining the Quint and Quint Hindi. Welcome to the Quint and Quint Hindi. The one question, as I mentioned before, sir, is that what led to the crash? Now, of course, the black box has been recovered. The series of and the sequence of events is being investigated and probed by the authorities to ascertain the exact reason as to what might have led to the ill-fated event. But then, one question that I would like you to answer for our viewers is, sir, that what is exactly a tabletop airport, and how is it different landing on a tabletop airport compared to the other airports?
Okay, first of all, hi Ishwar.
Hello, sir.
And hi to all the viewers of Quint. Thank you for having me over. And though you would like to have comments and views from the best sources and from the horse's mouth, I may not be the guy to do the thing, but yes, I will give you a broad idea of what all is happening. The background is, I've been in the Indian Air Force for 33 years. I'm a fighter pilot. I've flown in Kargil also. I've flown in most of the airports in India. Okay. So, not going too much into the emotional aspects and the other issues of the flight, that is the Vande Bharat issues and all. But to start off with, first of all, it's been a tragic event. It's been a most unfortunate thing, as it is with all these aviation accidents. It's always a very difficult thing. So coming straight to the point, addressing the issues of this particular tabletop runway, the airfield, and what are the possible things which led to it. The first thing which I would like to clarify, which I've mentioned earlier at other places also. It'll be an extremely difficult task to pinpoint and say A, B, C were the causes of the accident in these proportions. I've flown enough. I've conducted courts of inquiry in the Indian Air Force for various accidents, and I have faced them also for certain incidents which happened while I was flying. The worst thing that can happen is a trial by media. That you all agree. There's no doubt about it. And the only thing that what we should try and do is put the perspective correct without trying to bias anybody's mind, without trying to say, okay, and without trying to create a news event. And for that, I really appreciate, Ishwar, what you've done. You have gone to the official sites of Ministry of Civil Aviation, the Press Information Bureau, etc., to find out what is the exact thing. The problems are, unfortunately, not sufficient information is available on the official channels. Okay, and everybody wants to know what's happened. I'll not waste any more time. Okay, thanks for the small bit. Tabletops. Okay, why is the runway required there? There was no other place where they could have made one. In hilly regions, when they make this kind of runway also has to be located in such a place where an approach to the runway and takeoff from the runway is possible. Suppose you situated the runway in the valley. Okay, if you situated the runway in the valley, there is a lot of space. You can have a 10,000 feet runway. That means a huge one. I mean, 10 to 12,000 feet runway, 4 kilometers runway, which is ideal, which you want. I mean, if anything happens or all, this got adequate space for a person to stop. But now the place is all surrounded by hills. You cannot approach it. You cannot take off, vertically from there. So you have to select a via media, and then that's where you come to these kind of places, which is where an aircraft in the current situation can approach, land, and take off comfortably. So that's why you typically find these kind of places selected for the runways. Second, what is the problem with the tabletop? It has got a limited length for a runway. At certain places, it's large enough. Like, for example, Srinagar is also a tabletop, but the runway is more than 3 kilometers. Okay, so more than 3 kilometers. So there's no big deal out there. You've got enough space to create the safety areas beyond the runway where, because of an incident, if the aircraft is unable to stop, it gets arrested in the sand or the surfaces which are prepared to arrest an aircraft from getting damaged further. Here, that kind of overrun area is not available. When the runway finishes, there's hardly a little bit of space for this arrestor area, and there is a steep drop. Like in this particular case, the aircraft fell 35 feet below and then broke in two parts. Obviously, when you fall from that kind of thing and all, with this structure, it won't stay in place. Okay, so that is the one of the reasons. I mean, we just discussed about why a tabletop, where a tabletop, all of those kind of things. The problem areas. Typically, an aircraft, a civil aircraft, an airline, will follow a 3-degree glide path to land onto the runway. Okay, a 3-degree glide path. Okay. Now imagine a tabletop. Now at both ends, suddenly the features are dropping off. There's nothing further at all. There are times when there is a perception of depth which is incorrect depending on the day, time of the day, and the daylight and the light available, and the weather conditions, etc. So it is possible if you are flying visually. That the perception of depth varies, and even though you may be shown a glide path which is 3 degrees, but the pilot may elect to select something above or below that. Okay, which does not happen because most of the time you are flying on instruments, which is a mandatory thing, and which is a mandated thing also. Okay, so that's the second part. The third part, when you have a tabletop runway, that means you got features, the hilly features. The terrain is dropping off. The winds are in this kind of environment, hilly regions and all things. The winds get affected in a manner. This suddenly there is a vertical current which is building up at one end of the runway or the other end of the runway, depending on the directions of the wind and depending on the speed of the wind. So at one place you might find there is suddenly an updraft. That means an aircraft which is flying normally into a landing will suddenly get pushed up. So that guy who's maintaining a 3-degree glide slope will suddenly find himself, gone up to 3.5 degrees or 4 degrees or whatever. I mean, that's kind of extreme, but yes. So and in a similar manner, he will go below the glide path if he hits a downdraft. Now, these are the weather factors which affect at those kind of places. So tabletop has got these kind of perception problems, wind draft issues, okay, downdraft, updraft issues and all, and limitations in the total runway available and all. So these are the typical problems which are there.
So initial reports also suggest that the runway on which the flight was supposed to land, it changed. It had to change the number of the runway number on which it lands. The report suggests that it was supposed to land on runway number 28, but instead it had to decide to land on runway number 10. Now, what are the possible scenarios in which a pilot before landing decides to change the runway, and how does the communication with the airport authority goes about it? Because according to what we know so far, citing problem in landing, the flight also took several rounds before landing at the runway, which usually also happens in other cases when there are flight delays and when the runway is unavailable. But in this scenario, why do you think, how does it go when a pilot decides to change a runway? How does that sequence of events go?
Yeah, okay. You asked a number of things. But the last thing that you asked was, how does the pilot decide? Okay, I'll start with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this particular case, what happened? Like you mentioned, runway number, like you said, 28. 28 is a short form for 280.
Okay.
Okay, 280. So that is the direction in which the aircraft is landing at the runway. So it is. So 280 typically you say when you look at a circle, okay, the top is 360, the bottom is 180, on the right is 090, on the left is 270. So just imagine 270, 280 is little above that. That means the aircraft was landing from a westerly direction. It is landing into the west. Okay, so it's landing into west. So that is a small thing, nothing to do with the question that you asked. Okay, so it was attempting to land 280. Why was it doing this? Whenever you come into landing, you land in the direction opposite to the wind. Okay, so the runway which is in use, it's in use depending on the weather and the air. Yeah, I mean surface air conditions and all. So in this particular case, the runway in use was 280. So the pilot came in to land on 280, but he could not make the landing because as I said, 1 million reasons. But the weather was extremely bad. That is what everybody can conjecture at this moment. Okay. And he went around. He didn't land. He went around. That is the time he asked for an approach and landing on the opposite side of the runway. So instead of landing like this, he wanted to come and land like this from the other side of the runway. Okay. So the moment you do this, what happens? The wind which was opposite to you when you were landing earlier is behind you now. So that means you got a tailwind.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the implication? First of all, the pilot should know well in advance what are the wind speeds. Okay. For this wind speeds, which is the runway to be selected? even though the advisory is there from the ATC and the direct met information which they receive on the aircraft, they receive it directly onto the aircraft. They will know which is the runway to be used, and in case of a problem, can I use the other runway also? That means can I use it from the other side? That means the tailwind is not large to spoil my landing and all. So that means a tailwind component, which is the tailwind which is there now right now when I'm landing from the other side, it's okay. I can manage it within that. There's lay down restrictions. 10 to 15 knots is typical thing and all. So tailwind is within that, and they will land. So there's no big deal. So he went around from 2A8. He was trying to land on 2A8. He could not make it for whatever reason. Most probably weather issues and other related issues. And he elected to come back. He elected to make an approach from the other direction and land. So that is why that's what is the explanation. Secondly, as far as I know, it was only he made an approach for 280. That is 28 as you mentioned, and after that he tried to come into land on 10, which is short form for 100.
Okay, so there are a lot of obviously the black box has been recovered and the sequence of events will be as certain, but as you say, it is not possible, to exactly put out a timeline of events or a sequence or a series of happenings before such an incident takes place. Now, what is the procedure following this? Now, once the black box is recovered, what all do the authorities try to ascertain in terms of a mishap like this, and how does the investigation usually go ahead?
Yeah, okay. So the first part of the question that you asked, I'm not very clear, but once the black box is with you, there are two things. What you call as the black box is the digital data record. So and this data recorder records each and every bit of information that is relevant for the aircraft's safe flying and for forensic purpose, and it's done second to second. And there are many things which are done in milliseconds also. Okay, so there's a whole lot of detailed information available to you, and if this data recorder is available intact, it's the biggest help in forensic analysis. And the second thing which is available to you is the cockpit voice recorder. So you correlate what is the conversation between the pilots, between the ATC and between the other members and all, and you can correlate at various times and all, and you can probably figure out as to what was playing on the minds of the crew at a particular time. So because at a particular time, it could be two or three different things which are causing an issue, which you may not know, because you are not privy to the information at all. You can't capture the whole lot of information. Pardon me. Okay, so these two things are there. So when you start up the investigation, okay, the first thing that you do is inspection of the crash site, collect all the crashed materials, each and every bit and piece of the aircraft, thousands and millions of pieces. They will comb it and everything. They'll collect it. They'll take it back. They will sort it out. They will put things together: the engines, the electronics, the radios, so the cockpit stuff and all. They'll put it on, and then they'll start piecing it together. In the meanwhile, they'll be looking for the digital data recorders, the CVR, and all other stuff and all. So each and every bit and information is picked up right from word go, including pictures and videos, because when I think impacts on the ground, the scatter pattern of the pieces, etc., tell you a lot, and the state in which it was recovered. So the burn marks and the deformation in the state, and whether it was facing upward or it is facing downward, each and everything will matter in an investigation. So they will take pictures, detailed videos, detailed geographical positions of the stuff they collected, and they will get the data recorder, they will get the voice recorders, and one by one they will start piecing them together in trying to put the jigsaw puzzle together. It's a humongous task. Now, suppose you find a small part of an engine somewhere around. Okay. Now you look at it, it looks absolutely fine. The blades are shining and whatever and all, a small part you find. They'll not let it go like at that. They will first figure out now this component. Now they'll go to the data sources. They will go to the supply chain. They will say this component was which part number, which batch number, manufactured by which agency, at which place, at which time, how much life of that component is left further. Did it have any problem earlier? Okay, so they will correlate all this data. Then this component will be sent for metallurgical inspection. There are places like National Aeronautics Limited, NAL is there in Bangalore. They will send it out to these kind of agencies. They will send it to HAL. They will have it inspected. They will have a metallurgical report. Was there any fatigue? Was there? So I'm just talking about one small portion of an engine. Similar things will be done with the electronics, with the radios, with all other stuff and all, with the wiring, and with everything else.
So when we talk about the investigation, and from what you say, I'm sure it is going to be a lengthy process because it is a very detailed investigation, especially when the cockpit recorder and the data recorder, as Civil Aviation Minister Hardeep Singh Puri said, that have been retrieved. Now, considering the adverse weather conditions, do you think there might have been a lack of communication somewhere when it came to the weather conditions? And a follow-up to this, what I would want to know is that we all know how it was raining in Kerala that day, and aircrafts do land in such weather conditions. But when it comes to the condition of the runway, which gets wet, to a certain extent, does that factor play in when it comes to landing of the aircraft to lead to a mishap of this extent?
Yeah. It's a good question, and lots of people will have it in their mind because it's like this, what all factors have played into this accident? Okay, and what are the major factors, and which has contributed a hell of a lot, or which has contributed something which which can be easily overlooked and all. Okay, so what happens? So out of the 2-3 things that you asked, I'll start with that weather issue and all. Okay, weather is in continuous update and which is available to the pilots in the cockpit all the time. They can query it also. And especially when the weather is bad, they will get further updates and all updates as required. So that is not an issue in terms of non-availability of data, okay, or information. Okay, and there is no such communication that they have not received any or they were unsure of the weather, and the weather is being received from long time now. They started, see, they want to land at Kozhikode, and they would have started getting the weather. They would have been monitoring the weather from at least 100 miles and getting updates of the latest position as they keep coming closer. Okay, so that's not a big issue of lack of information about the weather. Okay, how does it affect? So like I said, in these kind of runways with high wind speeds, bad weather, a lot of things affect you. So if the wind speeds are high, like I was telling you earlier, there could be updrafts, downdrafts. When the aircraft is coming on the approach and all, it could be suddenly pushed up and suddenly pushed down. Issues like that. I'll come back to this once again. Then when they come in for landing, it's been raining heavily, like you mentioned, and everybody knows. Okay, when they come in for landing, it's been raining heavily. Normally, you will find that whenever it rains, the water does not stay on the runway because the slope is such that the water drains off to the sides and goes into the drains. Okay, but if it's continuously raining heavily and all, typically, like what you see on your car windscreen and all,
yes,
it rains lightly. It goes once, it's okay, comfortable. It goes twice, but it's raining heavily. You keep doing this, it doesn't make a difference. The water is still there. Okay. And how does the water affect you? water can cause something called aquaplaning. Okay, that means when you land, depending on the thickness of the layer of the water on the runway, which is typically what is termed as contamination. Contamination is, how much of the water is on the runway, or how much of snow is on the runway, or how much of oil is on the runway, those kind of stuff. Okay. So if the layer is thick enough, the tires do not make adequate contact with the runway. There is a film of water formed between the tire and the runway, and the braking is totally ineffective. It just keeps skidding over. So it's called aquaplaning. So that is the kind of effects of having films and layers of water on the runway. Okay, those are the kind of issues. So then, like I said earlier, there's updrafts and downdrafts and all. You're coming in for a normal landing. Before that, I'll touch upon the other factor that you asked. Okay, the weather is bad. The pilots know the weather. Now there is nothing called weather is bad in general. It is bad for the purpose if the pilot has got a minima of landing of 500 feet or 500 meters. If the weather conditions are such that the runway visual range is less than this, that means you cannot see the runway beyond this, less than this, he's not supposed to land. If it is within this criteria, within his criteria for landing, he will go ahead and land. That's about it. So it's not that if it's raining, you should land or you should not land. It is a minima fitness criteria for landing for the pilot, for the aircraft, and the airfield navigational facilities. So all these three things were within limits. That's why I elected to go in for the landing. Okay. Now I'll come to the point which I talked about, updrafts and downdrafts. Okay, you are on a 3-degree glide slope. You are coming on for landing. Now you got a limited runway. These kind of weather conditions, especially the runway is wet and all, you would not like to start applying brakes very soon because it can lead to aquaplaning. That means the wheels and the runway surface, there is a film formed in between and the contact is not established. There is a speed at which it typically happens. It's not a sacrosanct thing, but it typically happens. So, but in this kind of weather conditions, and in these kind of weather conditions, you would like to touch down as soon as possible. Typically, the touchdown zone, there's a touchdown zone about 1,000 feet from the beginning after the piano piece. You're supposed to touch down there. In these kind of weather conditions, you would like to touch down especially as soon as possible. Now imagine you're coming down 3-degree glide slope, all perfectly fine and all, you're supposed to land on perfectly. And you hit a updraft. So the aircraft, which is on a 3-degree glide slope and was planned to land at a certain place, now it has gone here. It'll go ahead because it cannot suddenly lose energy. When it goes up, it has got certain amount of energy. This energy cannot be suddenly lost. It's potential energy. It will get converted to kinetic energy, that is speed. As it keeps coming down, it cannot land at this spot. It will go ahead, which is kind of not in your control at that stage. And like I'm telling you again, we are all sitting in our chairs and comfortable, and we are trying to conjecture as to what are the reasons. It'll be an incorrect and a most inappropriate thing to come to any kind of understanding or conclusions as to what has happened. Most incorrect. So, like I said, the word which is very conveniently used is trial by media.
Well, that's a very good point you raised, Mr. Srinivas. Trial by media is not something that is supposed to happen in this scenario. 18 people, including 2 pilots, lost their lives in this ill-fated incident on the evening of 7th of August. Now, what are the reasons behind the crash? They will take a while to be as certain, but as Mr. Srinivas said, there still won't be a sequence of events as to A, B, C, and there can't be one particular blaming point when it comes to such landings and such crashes, because what the pilot goes through, what is the conversation between the pilot and the crew is not privy to us. Whatever information is retrieved from the black box, depending on which the series of sequence is, which might have possibly taken place, is as certain. But nevertheless, 18 people who were coming back home from Dubai amid the coronavirus pandemic to escape the after effects of the coronavirus pandemic in Dubai lost their lives, and that too at touchdown. Our heart goes out to all the families and all the victims of this crash. But as we say, the year 2020 is not something we can anymore expect or predict anything about. So, unfortunately, this incident took place on the evening of 7th August. The authorities are trying their best to ascertain what went, because the weather conditions were extremely unfavorable that day when we talk about Kerala rains and Kerala floods. And it was a second tragedy, in fact, that took place in Kerala that day after the landslide, which has so far killed at least 28 people as well. So our prayers go out to the families of victims of all the mishaps around the country, and especially the crash that took place on the evening of 7th August. It's been over 36 hours since the crash, which is way too less to ascertain the exact reasons behind it. And Mr. Srinivas agrees. A trial by media is not the way to go forward. With these comments, I thank you, Mr. Srinivas, for joining us. It was really a pleasure to have you here with your insights, because technical details can only be explained and understood by people like us and the viewers once we speak to somebody who has actually flown an aircraft before. And thank you so much for joining us with your insights. And to our viewers, we are continuously tracking the updates of the mishap on the Quint's website and Quint Hindi's website, along with Quint Hindi's Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Telegram, and Instagram. So stay tuned for all the updates of the mishap. As and when things clarify, we will of course be reporting them for you. Till then, thank you. Namaskar.
Done.